The distress signal had been broadcasting for 72 hours straight. In the communications center of Velrant 7, Council Representative Tyvish stared at the screen with growing despair. His four eyes, normally bright with the golden color of his people, had dimmed to a dull amber. Another day had passed without response from the Galactic Union. The mining colony sat on the edge of civilized space, far from the core worlds where the Union's power was strongest. 5,000 Quillari civilians called this rock home. They mined rare minerals from the planet's crust and sent them back to the homeworld. It was hard work, but it was honest work, and the colonists had built a good life here over the past decade. That life was ending now, 1 hour at a time. Tyvish walked to the viewport and looked out at the dark sky. 3 ships hung in orbit above the colony, like vultures circling a dying animal. Kreth raiders. They had arrived 4 days ago, demanding the colony surrender all its resources and evacuate. When Tyvish refused, they began their attack. First, they destroyed the defensive satellites. Then they took out the communications relay. Now, they were systematically targeting the life support systems and power generators. The Kreth were patient predators. They didn't want to destroy the colony completely. They wanted to break the colonists' will, force them to surrender, and then strip the place of everything valuable. It was their standard approach, and it usually worked. Engineer Melrose entered the communications center, his 6 limbs moving with the exhaustion that came from 3 days without sleep. "I've boosted the signal again," he said quietly. "It should reach twice as far now. Maybe someone will hear us." Tyvish didn't have the heart to tell him it probably wouldn't matter. The Galactic Union had received their first distress call 73 standard cycles ago, long before the Kreth arrived. The colony had reported increased raider activity in their sector and requested a peacekeeping vessel for protection. The request had been filed, reviewed, and placed in a queue behind 200 other similar requests. When the attack actually began, Tyvish sent an emergency signal. That one got a response, at least. A Union administrator contacted him within 6 hours to inform him that his case had been elevated to priority status. A committee would review it within 3 to 5 business cycles. After review, if approved, a peacekeeping force would be dispatched. Estimated arrival time was 15 to 20 cycles. The colony didn't have 15 cycles. They barely had 3. Below the surface, in the reinforced shelters that had been built for asteroid strikes and solar storms, families huddled together, parents held their children close. The young ones didn't fully understand what was happening, but they could feel the fear in the air. Food supplies were running low. The water recyclers were damaged. If the Kreth didn't kill them, thirst and hunger eventually would. Captain Joran, who led the colony's defense force, stood in the armory checking weapons. He had 200 volunteers, mostly miners and technicians, who had basic training, but no real combat experience. They had mining lasers modified into makeshift weapons. A few actual firearms from the colony's small security stockpile, and determination that wouldn't be enough against 3 warships. "How long can we hold them?" asked Lieutenant Kess, Joran's second-in-command. Joran didn't answer immediately. He finished inspecting a plasma rifle and set it down carefully. "If they land troops, maybe 6 hours. If they just bombard us from orbit, we can't hold them at all. We'll die in our shelters." Kess's antennae drooped. "The Union will come eventually. They have to." "Maybe," Joran said. "Maybe they'll come and find our bodies. Maybe they'll write a nice report about how tragic it all was. Maybe they'll add new procedures so this doesn't happen to the next colony." He picked up another weapon. "But it won't help us." In orbit, Kreth Commander Vexrel sat in his command chair, pleased with how things were progressing. The colony was nearly broken. Another day, perhaps 2, and they would surrender. His ships would take everything of value, and he would sell it all on the black markets of the frontier. It was good business. The Union never responded fast enough to interfere. He had raided 17 colonies in the past 2 years. 16 had surrendered before he needed to kill anyone. 1 had tried to fight, and he had made an example of them. Word spread after that. Most colonies just gave up now when his ships arrived. This would be number 18. Easy profit. No risk. Vexerol didn't know that something had changed. He didn't know that 3 sectors away, a ship from a species he'd never heard of had picked up the colony's distress signal. He didn't know that this ship wasn't bound by Union protocols or committee reviews. He didn't know that in less than 1 day. Everything would change. The USSC Valor moved through space at faster than light speed, racing toward Velrun 7 in the captain's ready room. Jake Morrison studied the information his communications officer had pulled from the distress signal. The Quillari colony had been calling for help for weeks. They had followed every proper procedure. They had filed every correct form. And no one had come. Morrison was 43 years old, a career military officer who had joined Earth's Space Navy when humanity first started, building ships capable of leaving the solar system. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt. He had defended mining operations on Europa. He had served on the front lines when the Mars separatists tried to break away. He knew what it looked like when people were abandoned by those who should protect them. Lieutenant Sophie Grant knocked and entered. At 29, she was the youngest tactical officer in the fleet, but Morrison trusted her judgment completely. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Raider signatures. 3 ships, Kreth design. They're known pirates. The Union has warrants out on them, but apparently enforcement is low priority in this sector." Morrison looked up from his tablet. "How long until we arrive?" "For hours at current speed. Can we go faster?" Sophie hesitated. "We could push the engines, but it's not recommended. The Valor is still new. We don't know how the faster-than-light drive handles sustained overspeed." Morrison stood up and walked to the viewport. Beyond it, stars streaked past in the strange, distorted way they did during faster-than-light travel. Somewhere ahead was a colony full of people who had done everything right and were dying anyway because bureaucrats moved too slowly. "Push the engines," he said. "Get us there in 2 hours. If something goes wrong with the drive, then we fix it when we arrive. Those people have been waiting long enough." Sophie nodded and left to relay the orders. Morrison knew she understood. The entire crew understood. They were explorers, technically. Their mission was to map new systems and make contact with distant species. But they were also military, and military meant protecting people. Earth had only been part of the Galactic Union for 6 months. Humanity was still learning how this massive government worked, still trying to understand the politics and procedures that governed thousands of worlds. What Morrison was learning, he didn't like much. The Union was old, set in its ways, more concerned with process than results. First Officer Peter Hayes joined him at the viewport. "The crew is ready for combat operations. We've run simulations, but this will be our first real engagement against alien vessels." "I know," Morrison said. "How are they handling it?" "They're nervous, but steady. Most of them signed up wanting to see the galaxy, meet new species, explore strange worlds. I don't think they expected to be going into battle this soon."
Ow.
Morrison smiled slightly. "When I was training, an old instructor told me something. He said humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics. It's that when we see someone in trouble, we can't help ourselves. We have to try to help. Even strangers." Peter asked, "Especially strangers? That's what makes us different." On Velrun 7, another shelter collapsed under Kreth bombardment. 15 colonists died before they could evacuate. Tivish listened to the casualty report with a heavy heart. They were losing people now. The Kreth were done being patient. He returned to the communications center and recorded another message. It would be added to the hundreds already being broadcast into space. "This is Velrun 7. We are under attack. Our defenses are failing. We have civilian casualties. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We are not soldiers. We are miners, families, children. We are dying. Please help us." The message joined all the others, spreading out into the darkness of space at the speed of light. Most would never be heard. A few might reach Union vessels eventually, but by then it would be too late. But one message, broadcast just minutes earlier, had been picked up by the Valor's long-range scanners, and the Valor was coming in the bridge. Morrison watched the countdown timer. 90 minutes until they reached the system. He opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is the captain. In 90 minutes, we're going to exit faster than light speed in an active combat zone. 3 hostile vessels have been attacking a civilian colony for days. The Galactic Union has not responded. We're going to respond. I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. We're 1 ship going up against 3. We don't know how tough these raiders are. We don't have backup. If something goes wrong, we're a long way from help. But there are 5,000 civilians down on that colony who are out of time and out of hope. So we're going to help them." The Kreth commander Vexrel sat in his command chair, watching the strange new ship on his displays. He had been raiding colonies for 15 years and never worried much about interruptions. The Galactic Union always took days to respond, sometimes weeks. By then, he and his crews would be long gone with their plunder. But this ship had appeared within minutes of entering the system, and it was moving toward them fast. Vexrel studied the vessel's design. It was crude compared to most galactic ships, built with thick armor plating and weapons that looked primitive but powerful. The hull markings were in a language his computer couldn't translate immediately. When the translation finally came through, it meant nothing to him. Earth, United Systems. He had never heard of either. On the bridge of the Valar, Captain Jake Morrison stood with his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the 3 enemy ships surrounding the colony below. His crew moved around him with practiced efficiency. They had trained for combat scenarios hundreds of times, but this was different. This was real, and they were about to start a fight in alien territory without any backup. "Lieutenant." Sophie Grant looked up from her tactical station. "Captain, I'm reading weapon signatures from all 3 Kreth vessels. They're powering up their main guns. I think they're trying to figure out if we're a threat." "Ah!" Morrison's jaw tightened. "Let's not leave them wondering. Charge all weapons. Raise shields to full. Helm, bring us in at attack speed." The Valor surged forward, its engines burning bright in the darkness of space. On Velrun 7, thousands of Quillari civilians watched their scanners in amazement. The human ship wasn't approaching cautiously or broadcasting diplomatic messages. It was heading straight into battle. Tivish, the colony's representative, stood frozen in the communications center. They're not going to negotiate first? They're not going to try to establish a peaceful dialogue? Engineer Melrose shook his head slowly. "Look at their approach vector. They're not here to talk. They're here to fight." Vexrel realized the same thing a moment too late. The human ship opened fire without warning, without demands, without the usual posturing that came before space combat. Blue-white beams of concentrated energy lanced across the void and slammed into his forward shields. The impact shook his entire ship. "Return fire," Vexrel shouted. All vessels engaged the newcomer. The 3 Kreth warships turned their weapons on the Valar. Energy bolts and plasma torpedoes streaked through space. The human ship's shields flared bright as they absorbed the hits, but the Valar didn't slow down. It kept coming, firing continuously. Morrison gripped the arms of his chair as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. "Damage report." "Forward shields at 70%, Sophie called out. "Hull integrity holding. No breaches. Could target their weapon systems. I want those guns offline." Sophie's fingers flew across her console. The Valor's targeting computer locked onto the nearest Kreth ship, analyzing its structure and identifying weak points. She fired a concentrated burst at the enemy vessel's portside weapon arrays. The shots connected perfectly, and explosions rippled across the Kreth ship's hull. Direct hit. Their portside guns are gone. The Kreth vessel tried to turn, presenting its undamaged starboard side, but the Valor was faster. Morrison had served 20 years in Earth's Navy, fighting pirates in the Outer Solar System and hostile forces in the Belt Wars. He knew how to press an advantage. "Helm, stay on them. Don't give them room to maneuver." The Valor swept around the damaged Kreth ship like a predator circling wounded prey. More shots hammered into the enemy vessel's engines and remaining weapons. Within minutes, the first Kreth ship was drifting helplessly, its crew scrambling to escape pods. Vexrel watched in disbelief. One of his ships was already out of the fight. The humans had disabled it in less than 5 minutes. His other two captains were screaming over the communication channels, demanding orders, panicking. "Concentrate fire on their engines," Vexrol commanded. "If we can't destroy them, we'll trap them here." The two remaining Kreth ships focused their attacks on the Valor's rear section. Energy bolts pounded against the human vessel's aft shields. Warning lights flashed across the Valor's bridge. "Rear shields at 40%. Sophie reported. "If they keep hitting us there, we're in trouble." Morrison thought quickly. The Kreth were using standard pack tactics, trying to attack from multiple angles at once. But they were also predictable. Helm, full reverse thrust. Engineering, divert power from forward shields to rear. Weapons, prepare full forward barrage. The Valor suddenly reversed direction, backing up rapidly toward the two advancing Kreth ships. It was a move that made no tactical sense by Galactic standards. Ships always advanced toward enemies or retreated away from them. They never backed into danger. But Morrison wasn't following Galactic tactics. He was using a maneuver from Earth's naval history, adapted for space combat. As the Valor reversed, its strongest weapons came to bear on the surprised Kreth vessels at point-blank range. "Fire everything," Morrison ordered. The Valar unleashed a devastating salvo. Missiles, energy beams, and railgun rounds all launched simultaneously. The concentrated firepower overwhelmed the shields of the nearest Kreth ship and tore into its hull. Atmosphere vented from multiple breaches. The ship's engines sputtered and died. Vexrol's own vessel was next. The Valor rotated smoothly and brought its weapons to bear on his flagship. He saw the human ship's gun ports glowing, ready to fire again. His shield generators were already overheating from the sustained combat, for the first time in his career. Vexrol felt genuine fear. These humans fought with a ferocity and creativity he had never encountered. They didn't follow the rules. They didn't fight fair. They fought to win quickly and decisively. He opened a channel to the human ship ready to threaten the colony below. If he couldn't win the fight, he would force them to back down by threatening civilians. It was a tactic that always worked with Union peacekeepers. But before he could speak, the human captain's voice cut through the communication system. Morrison's words were calm, but carried a weight that made Vexrol hesitate. "I know what you're thinking. You're going to threaten the colony. You're going to tell me that if I don't back off, you'll fire on those people down there." Morrison paused. "Here's what happens if you try that. You'll send your attack order. It'll take maybe 3 seconds for your weapons to lock onto the colony. In those 3 seconds, I will reduce your ship to scrap metal. Your crew will die. And even if your shots get through, we will save as many of those colonists as we can. Then we will hunt down every Kreth raider in this sector. We will not stop. We will not negotiate. We will not accept surrender until every single one of you is either captured or dead." Vexrol stared at his screen. The human captain's face was hard, his eyes cold. This wasn't a bluff. These Deathworlders meant every word. "Or," Morrison continued, "you can power down your weapons right now. You can surrender. Your crews live, you face justice through proper channels, and this ends without any more bloodshed. Your choice. You have 10 seconds. Vexrol looked at his tactical display. His fleet was crippled. One ship was completely disabled. Another was venting atmosphere. And his own vessel was barely holding together. The human ship, despite taking damage, was still fully operational and moving into position to fire on him. He had never surrendered before. Raiders didn't surrender. But raiders also didn't fight enemies who came at them like crazed warriors from ancient myths. "Power down weapons," Vexrol said quietly to his crew. "Transmit our surrender." On the Valor's bridge, Sophie confirmed the enemy stand down. "All 3 ships have powered down. They're surrendering, Captain." Morrison nodded slowly. "Good, Sergeant Brooks. Take your Marines and secure those vessels. I want their crews in custody and their weapon systems completely disabled." Sergeant Kyle Brooks, waiting in the ship's hangar bay with his squad, grinned. "With pleasure, sir." The Marines launched in boarding craft, heavily armed and ready for resistance, but the Kreth crews offered none. They had been broken by the swift, brutal efficiency of the human attack. Down on Velren 7, The Quellery colonists emerged from their shelters, hardly daring to believe it was over. The battle had lasted less than an hour. Tivish pulled up the communication frequency to the human ship, his hands shaking slightly. "Captain Morrison, we cannot find words adequate to thank you. The Union told us help would take weeks if it came at all. You arrived and ended our nightmare in minutes. Why did you help us? We are strangers to you." Morrison appeared on the view screen, looking tired but satisfied. "Where I come from, when someone needs help, you help them. It's not complicated. We heard your call, and we answered. That's what people do for each other." Tivish felt tears forming in his 4 eyes. It was such a simple philosophy, but it was also revolutionary. The Galactic Union had thousands of regulations about when and how to intervene in conflicts. They had committees that evaluated threats and bureaucrats who weighed political costs. But these humans had a different approach. They simply helped. "Will you stay?" Tivish asked. "At least until we can repair our defenses." "We'll stay as long as you need us," Morrison replied. "My engineers are already preparing to come down and help with repairs, and we'll make sure no more raiders bother you." The news traveled fast across the galaxy's communication networks. Within 2 days, every major world in the Galactic Union had heard about what happened at Velrun 7. A single human ship had responded to a distress call that the Union had ignored. That ship had defeated 3 Kreth raiders in less than an hour. The colony was saved. 5,000 lives that everyone had written off as lost were now safe. Ambassador Helen Cruz stood in her office on the Union Council station, reading the flood of messages that poured in from across the galaxy. Some praised Earth's actions. Many more condemned them. She had been expecting this meeting for days, and now it was finally here. The Council had summoned her to explain why humanity had violated their protocols. Helen was 56 years old and had spent 30 years in diplomatic service before Earth made contact with alien life. She had negotiated treaties, resolved conflicts, and dealt with difficult personalities from dozens of countries. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for galactic politics. The Galactic Union made Earth's worst bureaucracies look efficient by comparison. She walked into the council chamber with her head high and her expression calm. The chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of species. Today it was packed. Word had spread that the humans would be questioned about Velrun 7. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Councillor Vex waited at the center podium. He was Vorlin, a species known for their strict adherence to rules and procedures. His skin was a deep purple color, and his 3 eyes studied Helen with obvious disapproval. "Ambassador Cruz, you appear before this council to answer for the actions of the vessel Valor. Do you understand the charges?" Helen stepped to the speaker's platform. "I understand that some members of this council are upset that we saved 5,000 lives." "Yes, Counselor, I understand perfectly." A ripple of reaction spread through the chamber. Some species made sounds of approval. Others showed clear anger. Vex's eyes narrowed. "Do not be flippant, Ambassador. Your vessel engaged in military action without council authorization. You violated Union space sovereignty laws. You acted unilaterally in a situation that required diplomatic review." Helen met his gaze without backing down. The Quellery colony sent 73 requests for help. They filed every form correctly. They followed every procedure. And while your committees were reviewing their case, they were dying. Captain Morrison and his crew did what the Union could not or would not do. They saved lives. Councillor Sela, a younger Pranthy representative, spoke up from her seat. "The ambassador makes a valid point. We received the Quellery distress signals months ago. Our protocols required review by 3 different committees before military action could be approved. By the time we would have responded, there would have been no one left to save." Vex turned towards Sela with irritation. "Protocols exist for good reason. We cannot have individual ships making their own decisions about when to use military force. That path leads to chaos and war, and your path leads to dead civilians," Helen said sharply. "Tell me, Counselor, how many colonies have sent distress calls in the past year? How many are still waiting for your committees to finish their reviews?" Vex's face darkened. That information is classified. Then I'll tell you what I know, Helen continued. Since Earth joined the Union 6 months ago, we've monitored at least 40 distress calls from frontier colonies. Do you know how many received timely responses? 3 out of 40. The rest are still in review, or were told their situations didn't meet priority criteria, or simply never got answered at all. The chamber erupted in argument. Representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Helen stood quietly, letting them fight among themselves. This was exactly what she wanted. The council had been trying to make this about Earth-breaking rules. She had turned it into a debate about whether the rules were worth following. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Lisa Chen watched the council session through a live feed. She sat in her office at Naval Command Headquarters, her fingers drumming on the desk. The political situation was delicate. Earth was new to the galactic community and couldn't afford to make too many enemies. But they also couldn't back down from doing what was right. Her aide, Lieutenant Commander Greg Palmer, entered with a datapad. Admiral, I have the latest reports. We're receiving communications from 17 different colonies now. All of them have pending requests with the Union that haven't been addressed. They're asking if Earth can help. Lisa took the pad and scrolled through the messages. Each one told a similar story. Pirates, raiders, failing infrastructure, medical emergencies. All problems that needed immediate attention. All problems the Union would take weeks or months to address. How many ships do we have available for deployment? Right now? 6 vessels in range of these colonies. But Admiral, we're explorers. We're not set up to be a peacekeeping force for the entire frontier. Lisa leaned back in her chair. No, we're not. But we're also not going to ignore people who need help. Start drawing up response plans. Nothing official yet. I want to know what it would take to answer these calls if we decide to act. Greg hesitated. The council won't like it. They'll see it as us expanding our military presence without permission. The council can complain all they want, Lisa said. But I'm not going to tell Captain Morrison or any other officer that they have to ignore a distress call because it might upset some bureaucrat. On Velrant 7, life was slowly returning to normal. The Kreth Raiders were in Union custody now, being transported to a facility for trial. The colony's defense systems were being repaired. The shelters were emptying as families returned to their homes. But the scars of the attack remained, both physical and emotional. Tivish walked through the main mining facility, watching his people work. They moved with purpose now, no longer weighed down by the certainty of death. Engineers repaired damaged equipment. Miners prepared to resume operations. Children played in the streets again, their laughter echoing off the prefabricated buildings. But what struck Tivish most was the human presence. A team of engineers from the Valar had stayed behind to help with repairs. Chief Warrant Officer Nicole Sanders led the team, a woman with short brown hair and an easy smile, who seemed to know how to fix anything. Tivish found her working on a damaged power relay with Melrose. The two of them were deep in conversation, using hand gestures and translation devices to bridge the language gap. Nicole was explaining something about voltage regulators while Melrose took notes on a datapad. Our people are remarkable, Tivish said when they paused their work. Nicole looked up and wiped grease from her hands. Just doing our job? This relay system is actually pretty similar to some of our older designs back home. With a few modifications, we can boost its efficiency by about 20%. That is not what I meant, Tivish said. The Union calls your world a death world. They say your species evolved in conditions that would kill most others. They speak of Earth with fear and caution. But you use your strength to help, rather than to conquer. Nicole considered this for a moment. Well, yeah. I mean, Earth is tough. High gravity, aggressive weather, lots of things trying to kill you. But that's exactly why we help. We know what it's like to struggle. We know what it means when nobody comes to save you. So when we can help someone, we do. Melrose spoke up. The Union has thousands of species stronger than us Quillari. Many have more advanced technology. But when we called for help, only humans answered. Why is that? Nicole shrugged. I can't speak for other species. But humans have this thing where we can't stand by when someone's in trouble. It's like an instinct. We see someone who needs help, and we just have to try. Even if it's dangerous or inconvenient or doesn't benefit us. That is a strange instinct for a warrior species, Tivish observed. We're not really warriors, Nicole said. I mean, we can fight when we have to. But mostly, we're just people trying to do the right thing. Sometimes the right thing involves fighting. Sometimes it involves fixing power relays. She smiled. Either way, we show up. Across the galaxy, in dozens of colonies and stations, people were having similar conversations. The humans were different from other species in the Union. They acted without waiting for permission. They helped without asking what they would gain. They fought when necessary, but showed mercy when possible. It was confusing and inspiring in equal measure. In the Union Council chamber, the debate continued for hours. Councillor Vex insisted that Earth be sanctioned for violating protocols. Other council members argued that the protocols themselves were the problem. The chamber split along familiar lines, with core world representatives defending the existing system and frontier representatives demanding change. Finally, Helen was allowed to speak again. Councillor Vex, you're right about one thing. We did break your rules. Captain Morrison acted without authorization. He engaged hostile forces without committee approval. He saved 5,000 lives without filling out the proper forms. She paused. And he would do it again tomorrow. So would any other human captain. Because that's who we are. Cannot simply ignore Union law, Vex said angrily. Then change the law, Helen replied. Create a system that actually works. Set up a rapid response force that can answer distress calls immediately. 3 months passed since the incident at Velrun 7, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that something fundamental had shifted. Human ships appeared wherever there was trouble, responding to distress calls with a speed that shocked everyone familiar with how the Union operated. Each intervention followed the same pattern. Someone called for help. A human ship arrived. The problem got solved. Captain Linda Shaw stood on the bridge of the USSC Guardian, studying the sensor readings with concern. Her ship had picked up a distress signal from a Nexian medical vessel caught in a debris field near a collapsed jump gate. The medical ship carried 200 patients being transported to a treatment facility, along with 50 staff members. Their navigation systems were damaged, and they were drifting deeper into the field with each passing hour. How bad is it? Linda asked her navigator, Lieutenant Gary Foster. Gary pulled up a three-dimensional map of the debris field. Thousands of pieces of destroyed ships and station components floated in a deadly cloud, each one capable of tearing through a hole. It's bad, Captain. The field extends for 3,000 kilometers. The medical ship is right in the center. Any ship trying to reach them would have to navigate through all of that. What about using tractor beams from a safe distance? Too far. We'd need to get within 500 meters to get a solid lock. That means going into the field. Linda studied the map carefully. The Guardian was an exploration vessel, not designed for this kind of rescue. But that didn't matter. There were 250 lives at stake, and the nearest Union rescue ship was 4 days away. The medical ship didn't have for days. Their life support was failing. Helm, plot us a course through the field. Nice and slow. I want constant updates on debris movement. The Guardian moved carefully into the debris field. On the bridge, every crew member watched their stations with intense focus. A single piece of debris hitting their shields at the wrong angle could cripple them. Then they would be just another ship needing rescue. It took 3 hours to reach the medical ship. 3 hours of careful navigation, constant course corrections, and more than a few close calls. When they finally got close enough to establish a tractor beam lock, the entire crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. Got them, Gary announced. Tractor beams secure. Beginning extraction. Linda gripped her chair as the Guardian slowly pulled the medical ship back through the debris field. It was even more dangerous going back because now they were managing 2 vessels instead of 1. Every movement had to be calculated precisely. 5 hours after entering the field, both ships emerged safely on the other side. The Nexian captain contacted them immediately, his face showing the relief and gratitude of someone who thought they were going to die. Guardian, this is medical transport Bright Hope. You saved all our lives today. We had accepted that we would not survive. Then you arrived, Linda smiled. Glad we could help. Do you need medical supplies or technical assistance? We need everything, but mostly we needed you. The Union told us rescue was days away. You were here in ours. After the Guardian delivered the medical ship safely to the nearest station, Linda filed her report with Earth Command. She described the rescue in detail, noting that the Union's rescue protocols would have resulted in total loss of life. Her report joined dozens of others from human ships across the frontier. 2 weeks later, Commander Chris Bennett and his crew on the USS Defender encountered a different kind of problem. A convoy of Kellan trade ships was under attack by pirates in the Outer Reach sector. The convoy consisted of 6 cargo haulers, large and slow, carrying food and medicine to colonies in the region. Chris watched the situation unfold on his tactical display. 8 pirate vessels circled the convoy like wolves around prey. The Kellan ships had minimal weapons and no chance of fighting back. Tactical. What are we looking at? Lieutenant Amy Parker studied her console. 8 light attack craft, fast and maneuverable but lightly armored. They're trying to disable the cargo ships one at a time. So far, they've crippled 2 of them. How long until Union peacekeepers arrive? Dispatch says 6 hours minimum. Chris nodded. 6 hours was 6 hours too long. Battle stations. Helm, get us in there. Tactical. I want target locks on all 8 pirate vessels. Show them we mean business. The Defender accelerated toward the convoy at full speed. Chris opened a wideband communication channel. Attention pirate vessels. This is Commander Chris Bennett of the United Systems Ship Defender. You are attacking civilian cargo ships. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately, or we will engage. One of the pirate captains responded with laughter. You are 1 ship. We are 8. Leave now while you still can, human. Chris smiled coldly. Last chance. The pirates didn't withdraw. They turned their ships toward the Defender, apparently thinking they could intimidate this single human vessel. They learned their mistake quickly. Chris and his crew had spent months training for exactly this kind of scenario. The Defender wasn't the biggest ship or the most powerful, but its crew knew how to maximize every advantage. Tactical, target their engines only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. The Defender opened fire with precise, controlled bursts. The first pirate ship lost engine power within seconds. The second tried to evade, but ran straight into the Defender's firing solution. Chris maneuvered his ship with the skill of someone who had grown up playing 3-dimensional combat simulators within 10 minutes. All 8 pirate vessels were drifting helplessly. Their weapons were offline. Their engines were cold. Their crews were calling for mercy. The Kellan convoy captain contacted the Defender with obvious amazement. Commander Bennett, we witnessed your battle. You disabled 8 ships in minutes. How is this possible? Chris shrugged. Practice and determination. Are your ships able to continue to your destination? 2 of our vessels need repairs, but yes, we can manage. Thank you, Commander. You saved our cargo and our lives. After ensuring the convoy was safe and the pirates were in custody, Chris filed his report. He noted that the battle was won not through superior firepower, but through better tactics and crew training. His report went to Fleet Command, where analysts studied every detail of the engagement. Stories like these spread across the galaxy faster than any official news service could carry them. Frontier colonies shared them over communication networks. Traders told them in space station bars. Families repeated them to their children. The humans had arrived, and they were changing everything. In the council chambers, Ambassador Helen Cruz found herself in another heated debate. This time, the topic was what the council called the human intervention problem. Counselor Vex stood at his podium with a data display showing every human ship action over the past 3 months. 17 separate interventions, Vex said. 17 times human vessels acted without council approval. This pattern cannot continue. Helen looked at the display calmly. 17 times human vessels saved lives that would have been lost waiting for Union response. Should I apologize for that? You should respect Union authority, Vex replied. Every intervention undermines the established order. Counselor Sela spoke up from her seat. Perhaps the established order deserves to be undermined. Ambassador Cruz, your ships have accomplished more in 3 months than our peacekeeping forces have in 3 years. How? Helen had prepared for this question. It's simple. We don't wait. When someone needs help, we go. We don't form committees. We don't review political implications. We see a problem, and we solve it. But what about the complexities? Another counselor asked. What about the political considerations? The diplomatic ramifications? What about the lives? Helen countered. Every hour spent debating politics is an hour someone spends dying. Every committee meeting is time someone spends waiting for help that might never come. Yes, our approach is simple. That's the point. Sometimes simple is better. X's frustration was visible. You are forcing our hand. Either we adapt to your methods, or we lose credibility with the frontier worlds. They are starting to trust humans more than the Union. Then maybe you should ask yourselves why that is, Helen said. We've been part of this union for less than a year. In that time, we've shown the frontier colonies something they haven't seen in decades. We've shown them that someone cares enough to actually help. The debate continued for hours, but Helen knew she had already won the important battle. The frontier colonies were on humanity's side. More importantly, younger council members like Sela were starting to question the old ways. Change was coming, whether the X liked it or not. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Chen held a strategy meeting with her senior staff. The topic was expansion. Human ships were stretched thin trying to cover the entire frontier. They needed more vessels, more crew, better coordination with allied species. Lieutenant Commander Greg Palmer presented a proposal. Several species have expressed interest in joining our response operations. The Pranthi want to assign 3 ships to work with us. The Kellen are offering 2. Even some Quillari volunteers want to serve on human vessels. Lisa studied the proposal carefully. This could work, but we need to be careful. We're not trying to build an empire. We're trying to help people. Agreed, Greg said. That's why I recommend we formalize this as a joint operation. 6 months after Valoran 7, the Galactic Union Council chamber was packed with representatives from nearly every member species. The vote everyone had been waiting for was finally happening, after months of debate, argument, and political maneuvering. The Council would decide whether to officially recognize and authorize the Rapid Response Initiative. Ambassador. Helen Cruz sat in the human delegation section, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She looked relaxed, but inside, she was running through every possible outcome. If the vote failed, Earth would continue operating independently, but the political cost would be high. If it passed, humanity would gain legitimacy, but also face new restrictions and oversight. Councillor Thex stood at the central podium. His expression as stern as always. We now vote on Resolution 847B, establishing the Union Emergency Response Force. This force would be authorized to respond to distress calls without prior council approval, operating under accelerated protocols designed by the human delegation and modified by committee review. Helen noticed his emphasis on modified by committee review.
Ow.
Politicians had insisted on adding layers of oversight to the original proposal. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than the old system where nothing happened without endless debate. All in favor of Resolution 847B. Indicate now. Lights appeared across the chamber as council members registered their votes. Helen watched the tally board. The Frontier representatives voted yes almost immediately. Core World representatives were split. Some voted yes, recognizing that change was necessary. Others voted no, clinging to the old ways. The count continued for several minutes. When it finished, the result appeared on every screen in the chamber. The resolution passed by a margin of 58% to 42%. It was closer than Helen would have liked, but a win was a win. Councillor Sela stood and addressed the chamber. The resolution passes. The Union Emergency Response Force is hereby established. As specified in the resolution, command of this force will be offered to Fleet Admiral Lisa Chen of Earth, subject to her acceptance and council confirmation. Vex looked like he had swallowed something bitter. This is a historic moment, though perhaps not in the way some of us hoped. The Council recognizes the new force. May it serve the Union well. Helen allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. Earth had been part of the Galactic Union for less than a year, and they had already changed one of its fundamental institutions. But the real work was just beginning. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Chen received the news in her office at Naval Command. Her staff cheered and congratulated each other, but Lisa remained focused. Send a message to all our ships. Tell them the vote passed. Tell them we're now officially authorized to do what we've been doing all along. Lieutenant Commander Greg Palmer grinned. It's almost funny when you put it that way. We spent 6 months breaking their rules, and now they've changed the rules to match what we were doing. That's politics, Lisa said. The important thing is that we can help more people now. Start coordinating with the other species who volunteered to join the response force. I want training programs established within 2 weeks. Already working on it, Admiral? The Pranthi have assigned 5 ships to our command. The Kellen are sending 3. Even a few Vorlon captains have volunteered, despite Counselor Thex's opposition. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Vorlons? That's surprising. Not all of them agree with Thex. Some younger Vorlon officers have been watching what we do. They like our approach. The official designation was the Union Emergency Response Force. But across the galaxy, people started calling it something else. The Deathworlder Corps. The name started as a joke on frontier communication channels, referencing Earth's classification as a death world. But the name stuck because it captured something essential about the Force's character. These were beings who came from harsh worlds and hard lives, who understood struggle and survival, who used their strength to protect rather than dominate. Within a month, the new force had 30 ships under its command. Human vessels formed the core, but crews were mixed. Pranthi navigators worked alongside human tactical officers. Kellen engineers trained under human chiefs. Vorlon science officers learned to trust human instincts. It was messy and chaotic and sometimes frustrating, but it worked. Captain Jake Morrison found himself promoted to Commodore and given command of the entire fleet. The Valor became the flagship, and Morrison's bridge crew became the model for how mixed-species teams should operate. Lieutenant Sophie Grant, now promoted to commander, served as his executive officer and trained other tactical officers in the rapid response doctrine. On a quiet day between missions, Morrison stood in the Valor's observation deck, looking out at the stars. Commander Sophie Grant joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use this, sir." Morrison accepted the cup gratefully. "Thank you. I was just thinking about how much has changed. 6 months ago, we were an exploration vessel on a routine mission," Sophie said. "Now we're commanding a fleet and training half the galaxy in combat tactics. Does it bother you? The fighting, I mean? We signed up to explore, not to be soldiers." Sophie considered the question carefully. "I think we're still explorers. We're just exploring what it means to be good neighbors in a galaxy that forgot how. Every time we respond to a call, every time we save lives, we're showing people a different way of doing things." Morrison nodded. "I hope you're right. Because if we start seeing this as just military action, if we start enjoying the fighting more than the helping, then we've lost what makes us different." "I don't think you need to worry about that," Sophie said with a smile. "Have you seen the crew? Half of them still can't believe we're allowed to do this officially now. They're like kids who got permission to do what they were already sneaking around doing." Morrison laughed. It was true. The entire crew had adjusted to their new role with enthusiasm. They trained harder, studied more, and took pride in being part of something important. News reached them a few hours later. A colony in the Outer Reach had sent a distress call. Hostile forces were approaching, and the colony's defenses were inadequate. Under the old system, this call would have gone to a committee for review. Under the new system, it came directly to Morrison. "All ships, this is Commodore Morrison. We have a Priority 1 distress call from the Outer Reach. Task Force Alpha, you're with me? Task Force Beta, hold position and maintain ready status. We launch in 30 minutes. The Valor and 5 other ships departed within the 30-minute window. They jumped too faster than light speed, racing toward a colony they had never heard of to help people they would never meet. It was exactly what they had signed up for. On Velrant 7, the colony that started everything, life had returned to normal. Better than normal, actually. The colony's population had grown as refugees from other troubled regions heard about the place where humans had made their stand. The mining operation expanded. New facilities were built. The colony thrived. Tivish walked through the bustling streets, watching children play and workers go about their business. A year ago, this place had been dying. Now it was alive with possibility. He stopped at the monument in the central plaza, as he did every day, and read the inscription. On this day, the colony of Velrant 7 called for help. The Galactic Union did not answer, but Earth heard our call. The crew of the USSC Valor risked their lives for strangers. They asked nothing in return. They simply helped because help was needed. May we never forget what they taught us. May we always remember that when someone calls for help, we answer. A human woman stood nearby, also reading the inscription. She wore the uniform of the response force, though Tivish didn't recognize her rank or assignment. She noticed him watching and smiled. Beautiful words. Were you here during the attack? I was the colony's representative, Tivish said. I sent the distress calls. I watched your people arrive when no one else would come. The woman's expression grew serious. My brother served on the Valor. He told me about this place, about how scared everyone was, about how grateful you all were when it was over. We owe your people everything, Tivish said. No, the woman replied. You don't owe us anything. That's the point. We didn't help you to create a debt. We helped because it was the right thing to do. Because that's what people should do for each other. Tivish felt his eyes brighten with emotion. Your brother explained it the same way. I think I am beginning to understand. It is not about obligation or debt. It is simply about being decent. Exactly, the woman said. She extended her hand in the human greeting gesture. I'm Lieutenant Commander Rachel Bennett, by the way. I'm here to help train your new defense force. Tivish clasped her hand carefully. You are training us. The response force isn't just about humans anymore, Rachel explained. It's about everyone learning to help each other. We train colonies to defend themselves better. We teach response protocols. We share what we know. That way, maybe someday you won't need us to come save you. Maybe you'll be strong enough to save yourselves, or even save someone else. It was a vision of the future that made sense to Tivish. Humanity hadn't come to create dependence. They came to create capability. They wanted to build a galaxy where everyone looked out for each other.